Hi my loves, welcome back, and if you are new here, welcome here. In this channel we talk about relaxed hair care, hair growth tips, protective styling, and so much more concerning the hair topic in general. So if you know you're interested in this type of content, please consider subscribing to join the family. So in today's video, I'm going to be sharing with you guys other tips on how to protect your edges, how to grow your edges, how to save your edges. I already made a part 1 of this video, so you can check it out if you are interested. So this is actually the part 2, and without further ado, we are just going to get started. So the first thing I'm going to be talking about in this part is make sure you include your edges in every part of your routine. Every routine you are carrying out on your hair, every regimen you are using, every regimen you are creating, make sure your edges are included. So if you are moisturizing and sealing your hair, which I've already talked about in the first part of this video, make sure your edges, you are including them in that routine as well. Make sure your edges are moisturized and sealed as well. If you are deep conditioning your hair, make sure your edges are deep conditioned as well. If you are co-washing your hair, make sure your edges are co-washed as well. If you are giving your hair a protein treatment, make sure your edges are included as well. So I know I said include your edges in every part of your routine, but for trimming, I don't think you may have to trim your edges, because like, what are you trimming? They are already short enough. I don't want to wipe off all what that is there, but personally I don't trim my edges, and I don't think I've seen anyone that trim their edges. Maybe they are. Please, if you've seen anyone that trim their edges, please let me know in the comment section down below. But personally, I have not seen, and I don't trim my edges, and I don't think you have to trim your edges. If you have bangs, fine, you can trim your bangs, but not your edges. So moving on, the next tip I'm going to be talking about is when using a bonnet, use a satin or silk bonnet, or when using a scarf, use a satin or silk scarf, because we are not just protecting our hair when we wear that bonnet, we are also protecting our edges. Now if you are using a bonnet and is a satin or silk bonnet, but the band or this part that is on your edges is like cotton or is not satin or silk, your edges are not protected. Your hair may be protected, but your edges are not protected. So when you are using a bonnet, make sure everything, including the part that is on your edges, has a satin or silk material. The same with scarves. When you are using a scarf, make sure, of course, every part of the scarf is definitely going to look the same, but for the bonnet, take note, when using a bonnet, make sure the material is the same all through, because sometimes nowadays I see some funny looking bonnets. Like, bonnets are supposed to protect your hair, right? But the whole thing, it's crazy. I see some bonnets, and instead of protecting the hair, it's actually possible for them to damage the hair. So don't just go and buy any bonnet just because it's a bonnet. The fact that it is a bonnet does not mean that it's protecting your hair or protecting your edges. So make sure you take into consideration the material of the bonnet, satin or silk, and make sure that the entire part of the bonnet, including the parts on your edges, is satin or silk. Now moving on, the next thing I'm going to be talking about is make sure your wigs are not too tight. Now there are wigs that come with adjustable bands, but there are some wigs that don't have adjustable bands. I've actually used a wig like this before in the past, and when I tell you that whenever I wear that wig, it feels like the circulation to the upper part of my scalp is kind of cut off. Like, I get a lot of pain, I can get headache when you are wearing a wig like that. Not that it's actually possible for it to damage your edges, because apart from that, even if it's limiting blood flow to your scalp, your hair, like your normal hair now, not your edges, are also going to be affected, because blood flow to your scalp is actually very, very important in growth of your hair, length retention, the health of your hair and all that. And that is why a scalp massage challenge, apart from stimulating oil production from your scalp, it also helps in stimulating blood flow to your scalp, which helps in hair growth and all that. So when you are using something that is restricting blood flow to your scalp, or that is too tight on your edges, know that that is wrong, that is bad, that can damage your hair, that can damage your edges. So when you are using wigs, it's either you use the wigs with adjustable bands, or if they are not adjustable, just make sure that they are not too tight. So moving on, the next tip I'm going to be talking about is also going to be about wigs. Now, when using wigs, be very careful about using glue for your wigs. I have never ever used glue on my edges, not once, ever. Like, since I was born, I have not used glue on my edges or on my hair in general. That is why I get glueless wigs. I get wigs with band. Like, you don't have to use glue for all those. I think I've showed you guys my wigs before in this channel, so I don't use glue on my wigs. So be very careful. If you have to use glue, be very careful the type of glue you use, because I don't know so much about glue for wigs, so I cannot really recommend any for you since I don't use, so I don't know so much about them. But if you have to use, ask a professional. Maybe there are types that will not damage your edges, maybe there are types that are healthy for your edges, your hair and all that. But if possible, generally, please just avoid glue if possible, especially if you don't know so much about glue, because the number of people that have lost their edges to glues is uncountable. Like it's too frequent for you not to know that glues can actually rip your edges off. So be very careful if you must use glue on your hair. Like I said, research. Maybe there are types that can protect your edges, or ask a professional. But for me, I don't use glues on my edges, I don't use glues on my hair, so I don't know so much about them. So moving on, the next tip I'm going to be talking about is protect your edges in protective styles. When you are installing protective styles, you are not just protecting your hair, your edges should be protected as well. So that is why the type of protective style you're going to install is also going to matter, because the protective styles are not really protective. Some low manipulation styles are actually confused to be protective styles. I've already made a video on the difference between low manipulation styles and protective styles before on my channel, so you can check it out if you are interested. But a protective style should be able to protect your hair fully from the roots, from the new growth to the ends. So when installing a protective style, also take into consideration your edges. But that does not mean that you have to like pack every single one of your edges into your protective style like some people do, and it will not become too tight. There will be a lot of tension. This can actually lead to breakage, not saving your edges. Now this can actually lead to breakage from traction alopecia. So protect your edges in a protective style, but you don't have to drag everything into the protective style so that it now becomes too tight. Don't force it. The one that cannot enter the protective style, just leave it like that. Your edges are not meant to be forced into a protective style, but the parts that you can include into the protective style, please do include them. For example, if you are using a wig, it is more protective to use a full wig than to use a half wig, or clipping extensions where everything, your edges and a lot of your hair is still very much exposed. But if you use a full wig, it is actually very possible to protect everything, all your edges under the wig. So always make sure to put your edges into consideration when you are installing a protective style. Now moving on, the next tip I'm going to be talking about is be careful the gels you use on your edges. If you know me, I'm not really a fan of gels. Sometimes I use gels, but rarely. I think for the past 2 to 3 years or even 4 years, I may have used gel on my edges like twice, and that is because I have not really researched so much about gels. And if you know me, I am very careful about what I try on my hair, and that is why when I'm not sure of something, I actually like researching, watching videos, going online to get a full grasp or a full knowledge, or at least an extensive information on that product, regimen, or whatever before I try it on my hair. So I've not really researched so much about gels, so that's why I don't know the particular type that I can use for my hair. But one thing I know is some gels are harmful. These things contain chemicals, so you have to be careful the type of gel you use on your hair. When buying a product, always look at the ingredients. If the ingredients contain something that can actually be damaging to your hair, please avoid that product. A hair gel, to me, should contain things that can actually protect your edges, should contain protein ingredients, should contain moisturizing ingredients. The fact that it's a gel does not mean that it can't contain those things. It's also going to be used on your hair. You're going to use it on your hair. Your edges is part of your hair, so it should contain things that have protein and moisturizing ingredients. Like I said, I've not researched so much about gel, so I don't really know if there's a particular one that has protein and moisturizing ingredients, but I've heard so much about the Eco Styler gel. I have not tried it before and I've not researched about this. Maybe I'm going to research about it. So just like with any other product you use on your hair, be careful about the gels you use on your hair. Research about a product, about a gel, find reviews about it before you eventually use it on your hair, because honestly speaking, if a gel is bad, you're not going to see the results on that particular day you use it. It may take up to a year because it's cumulative. You are not going to see the negative results, the breakage all at once. You may start noticing the results 1 year later, and before you even start noticing it, it means that it has already done a lot of damage, because you are actually seeing your edges every day and you are not going to be noticing the little changes that occurs every day. Just like when you have a child at home and the child is growing, you are less likely to see the difference in change, in growth and other, compared to someone that traveled, that has not seen the child for 3 months and now came back and is seeing the child currently. The person is more likely to notice the difference compared to you that is seeing the child every day. So the same thing for your edges, you are seeing it every day. So if you are using a product, a hair gel, something that is causing damage, you may not really notice it that instant. You may notice it months later, sometimes maybe even 2 years, when you now look back at your old photos. You may not be surprised and say, hey, I think my edges were fuller like in this photo. What the hell happened to my edges? Where did it all go? Not knowing that it's something you've been using consistently over the weeks, over the months, and over the years that actually caused that damage. So in order to avoid all these stories, before you use any product, before you use a gel or anything on your edges, make sure you research about it, you look at the ingredients in that product. So moving on, the next tip I'm going to be talking about is patience. In as much as our edges are very sensitive, they can be very stubborn at times, because I know some people can actually find it very difficult to grow their edges. Yes guys, some people's edges may be more difficult to grow than others, but as long as you do these things I mentioned in the first part of this video and in the second part of this video, you will eventually see results. The rate of growth or the rate of progress may be different for different people, but you are definitely going to see progress. So yeah guys, if you have any more questions about how to grow your edges or how to save your edges, so about the hair topic in general, please make sure to leave them in the comment section down below and I'll make sure to get back to you. If you watched this video this far and you enjoyed this, please don't forget to give it a big thumbs up. If you are new here and you aren't subscribed, please consider subscribing to join the family, and don't forget to turn on the post notification bell so that you'll be the first to get notified whenever I upload a new video. So yeah guys, that's it for today's video. Thank you so much for watching and I'll see you in my next video. Bye.